Welcome once again to Win, a program devoted to succeeding in life. I'm Dick Spengler, and we have a real winner as a guest. He is known as a life counselor. He's a man by the name of Al Mejia. And Al is from El Toro here in Southern California. A life counselor. Now, this is a revelation, or perhaps even a revolutionary type of profession in the 20th century, isn't it, Al?
Well, it may seem that way in the sense of the word. However, I was talking to a psychologist the other day, and I told him what it was that I was doing in this life counseling and in centering. And as he listened to what I was saying, he said, well, you know, it's really not a new industry. He says it's the oldest industry that's been around, except our society doesn't accept it.
Matter of fact, you have gone so far as to found an organization called Freedom to Succeed, and your other one I see is called the Live Now Association. How are these two intertwined, and why did you organize them?
Well, the one presents seminars. Okay, Live Now presents the seminars, the Freedom to Succeed, all right? So that this way, the people go and find out how this can apply to their life, or if it does apply to their life. Because there are some people that are centered, and they don't know that they're centered, and there are a lot of people that are having all kinds of difficulties, and they don't know why they have the difficulties. Once they sample what we're talking about, and they begin to become centered, then they can see where their problems come from, where they stem from. And then in that sense of the word, the person becomes separated, say individuated from his own brain, his thought process, and then he can see how his thought process thinks almost as if it was a different person. You know, you see people, or you've heard of people, they call them, well, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, two different people. Or people that say one thing and do another thing. Two diverse things, and the person himself doesn't know why he does it or that he's even doing it. However, other people that are observing are able to see that the person is actually saying one thing and doing another.
Don't we all have the yin and yang in us, that is the positive and negative flow?
Well, this is true. However, the yin and the yang and the positive and the negative is not because we were born that way. It's because we've learned and we've adapted and adopted information which has come from the outside into our brain rather than coming from our own intuition through ourselves into the process of living. So the information that's been gathered over the years, say at home, in the environment, in our society, that information that's been gathered is not natural to the person. So now, when the person gets centered and through intuition then begins to live his life, he is able to separate and segregate that information that has been learned that for a period of time has governed his actions and his living. And this information is what creates the mistakes in the person's life, because the person's not living from the inside out, but rather he's taken this outside information and has made himself comply to it. And this is what creates the problem.
We are constantly bombarded with extraneous information, literally 24 hours a day, through radio, television, newspapers, magazines, all forms of communication, even walking around the streets. You're saying so much of this is unnecessary to, as you're pointing out, succeed and attain, as you call it, freedom.
Oh, absolutely. You see, you can have a freedom from this and a freedom from that. Now, when you become centered, there is where you have the total freedom. In this sense of the word, that as you are centered, you are then intuitively living. You have tapped into the base of knowledge, okay? And it's not the learned information, but it's the knowledge that is natural to your own nature, okay? Now, as such, the person in that state then can observe his society, can observe what he's reading, can observe the media, can observe anything that's going on, but then he does not emotionalize it and therefore be governed by it. You see, he can see it as an observer. He can see what's being said, what's being projected out there, but he does not become part of the projection. He still remains himself stable and is able to act from his stable position according to what his needs are, which keeps him in truth to himself and does not create any problems for himself or for anyone else.
In Oriental philosophy, that physical centering is down just below the belly button area, around in that area anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Does that apply in this
Yes.
case too?
Oh, absolutely.
In what way physically, would you say?
Well, in a physical sense, it gives you a sense of well-being, a stable. You feel, how shall I put it, almost as if you were one of these oxygen cylinders. You become full, and you become fuller and fuller and fuller with this energy and vitality and enthusiasm and capability, and see, all this then begins to come out of you. See, it begins to come out of the person, and it becomes an impelling force that moves the person into doing what they're best capable of doing. See? It's an infused type of thing that is inborn. It's the person's true nature. And so the success that the person has already within him becomes externalized on the outside, and it becomes a fulfillment.
You encounter many, shall I say, troubled people who benefit from your teaching. What kinds of people are we talking about?
Well, we have many different people. We have, say, schizophrenics, and it's amazing how they are able, once they get centered, they're able to see what's been misguiding their life.
That's the Jekyll and Hyde type
That's the Jekyll and
personality.
type thing.
Definitely.
You see? And, say, a business person, a housewife, in a family relationship, in all kinds of relationships, because in reality, then you are your true self, and you're not a makeup of who you think you are. So therefore, you're dealing from truth from your own self, and you're dealing that way with other people, so therefore it attracts the truth from them to you. So you have something that works evenly straight across the board, you see?
Were you uncentered? What led you to this program? You developed it, really.
Well, the basic thing is that about 13 years, I got to a place where I couldn't go forward, I couldn't go backward. I knew there was something dreadfully wrong. And that's when I started realizing that I had been following my thoughts around. My thoughts would tell me, do this, and I would do this. It'd tell me, do that, I'd do that, go here, go there, whatever. And I was following those thoughts around. And little by little, I started realizing that the thoughts were not me. The thoughts were merely what the thinking was thinking at the time. And I always thought that the thoughts were me, but they weren't.
That sounds confusing on the face of it, but